Mike, it's all yours.
Okay, at this point, most of us who've been here have been here for almost 2 hours. And I'm sure you'd like to at least stand up, stretch your legs, maybe get a cup of coffee, use the restroom, whatever. So my clock says 2:51. Let's give ourselves at least 5 minutes and come back at 2:56. And anyone who's staying, feel free to use this as open social chatting. And I myself will be back in 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
I'll hang in there for another 5 minutes for my voice, and then I'm going to go silent and let Mike take it over. I'll probably still be on here, but my voice made it through, so I must be getting better, which is good. And I'm glad everybody came, and I hope you got something out of the meeting and learned some things. And those who want to stay, Mike's going to be talking about switching your computer over to Linux at the end of Windows 10 updates. And I think if you're at all interested in that, Mike has done extensive work on doing it, and so has Drew. And I think it will be very beneficial. And don't forget, I have the Let's Talk
Yeah,
AI, the fourth Friday of the month, where we talk about AI for a whole hour. And it's been the whole idea is talking about discussing things and maybe showing some examples, but for the most part is learning what's out there, what's new, what changed, and so on. And I've made an AI page on Huey.net now, and I've got a bunch of videos to add to it and articles to add to it, so feel free to go to it. And what I didn't mention, I don't promote myself enough, but on the front page of Huey.net, I am asking for people to volunteer for this next year to help me with some of the subscriptions that I need to continue doing what I do. And if you wish to donate to the coffee fund, I would appreciate anything that you can afford and would like to go ahead and donate. I appreciate everything that anyone's done, and it really helps me a whole bunch. I live on Social Security, and so these things take away from, well, your visa percentage goes up because of me. Lots of new things, lots of things happening in the AI world. I'm trying to keep up with them all. It's amazing how quickly, how fast things are moving along. I found and I'm going to talk about it at the end of the month on my meeting. So I found something that you can look at any picture and it will create the prompt that would create that exact same picture, whether it be a photograph or whether it be an AI generated thing. It will give you the prompt to use to try to duplicate that. Because I have a problem with my beard the way it is, that if I ask anything about a beard, it's a full beard and doesn't, and I have not, still haven't found a way to make that happen. So I've been playing with that. It's still not working, but uh, being able to look at a picture and then make a prompt and then use and then make changes in that prompt and then put it back in and create a prompt at one of the AI tool using one of the AI tools to create prompts. I've been getting some very interesting results. Mike, I see you're back, and it's 1 minute to where you take over again, so I'll give it back to you.
We'll give your voice a rest. Okay. Let me get my screen shared here. And this is the Central Florida Computer Society's Social Club main meeting for March 9th. I'm Mike Ungerman. I'm the chairman of our social groups coordination committee. This is the Central Florida Computer Society's landing page. on the web, just cfcs.org. If you ever have any questions of what we do or how to get on to any one of the items that we share with members and interested people, you come to this webpage. We're members of the Association of PC User Groups. If you haven't been to their webpage, even as a non-member, there's lots of interesting things to go to and check out. We have a Discord bulletin board system or server where we do social interaction and club coordination. If you've never set up a Discord account before, you go to discord.com, create an account, come back to this web page, click on the invite link, and you'll be in our Discord. You can find out more about what Discord does from Discord, but just think of it as the old-time bulletin board brought up to the modern internet days. And this link changes every Monday now, usually 5 p.m., 6 p.m., whenever I get onto the site. So if you ever click here and it's just not connecting and it's on a Monday, I just haven't updated this, and usually give it about a couple of hours or the next day, and the latest link will be there. And all of our videos are on YouTube, besides being archived on Huey.net for the WinSig. All of the CFCS meetings are archived at this playlist, and you can take a look at those. You're obviously here, so you don't need to get signed up on the Windows Special Interest Group, but Huey.net is where you might refer somebody, especially if you're in a user group that wants to join us, pass the word. And we do have a tech sig that's held monthly, and it's an informal show and tell. And if you want to get on the email mailing list to get an invitation to join the tech sig, the link to do that is down here. We have an email address that's set up. I use slmail.me as a redirector so that it's not my personal email, but I'll add you to or add anybody that you pass this link on to, so that you can get notices of our upcoming meetings. Okay, today's presentation, and I'd like to keep it as informal as possible, so please raise your hand, and either Huey or Drew, if you're monitoring that, just interrupt me if somebody's got their hand up and I don't see it. We're going to talk about options for continuing to use your Windows 10 PC after October 25. And this is actually part one of probably an 8-part series as to why I chose to put Linux on my brand new B-Link mini PC instead of Windows 10, 11, because I had been using Linux before, but in coming to the decision, I had a lot of choices to make. And I realized that for many people, they probably have an old computer and are thinking about a new computer, but they wonder if they really need to spend the money. And what would happen if they decided to continue to use this PC after October 2025, or do they have to go out and get a new one? I asked that question of Copilot and got a very nice outline that helped me put this presentation together. So we'll be looking at the options available for users of Windows 10 to start with, as Microsoft ends support on October 2025. It covers retaining Windows 10, upgrading to Windows 11, buying a new PC with Windows 11, choosing new hardware, Chromebook, or keeping your old hardware and switching to another operating system such as Linux. We'll take a look at the pros and cons of some of these options. First of all, what do you want to do if you want to continue with Windows 10 after October? So, do you think your computer is safe without getting updates? Do you feel that you've got a good firewall with the Windows 10 firewall or a third-party firewall? Do you feel you've got good antivirus, anti-malware? And do you have good personal support for not clicking on links that you probably shouldn't be clicking on anyway, that's going to put bad things on your computer, that not having updates from Microsoft might cause some problems. And of course, are you making regular backups so that if something does have to happen to the computer, you can put an image back on and be back up and operating? So really, there's no essential security updates coming after October 2025, unless you pay for them. And there's no protection for the vulnerabilities that I just mentioned. Now, one of the options is to retain Windows 10 and get extended support. The support can come from Microsoft or a third party. So if you decide that you want to retain Windows 10 by purchasing extended support from Microsoft, we anticipate, I don't think Microsoft has formally announced it yet, that they will extend support with a license extension, the current license that you have, but you're going to have to sign up for it, of approximately $30 a year. As an incentive not to do this every year, they're going to increase the price. And I've heard some people say that we're looking at it doubling to 60 in the second and possibly getting higher. We don't really know when they're going to stop it completely, but it's expected to increase in the second and potentially a third or more years. You will get essential security updates and patches, and you will get continued protection from vulnerabilities like zero-day attacks, but you're not going to get newer features. So the Windows 10 23H2, I think it is, or maybe it's 22H2, whatever it is, the latest ones that are currently being downloaded, that's it come October. There'll be no significant updates, only security updates and patches. Now, there is at least one company, I think there's more that I recall, but in my research, there's a company called OPatch, and they're going to offer miniature patches that load up into RAM from their service. Each time you boot your computer, it will have to put microcode into the operation of Windows 10 to operate. And I'll take a quick look at that site. OPatch is the site, and they do this for corporations, but they are going to do it for just private users. So as I scroll down here past enterprises, well, where was it? It was just, how does it work? So you can get information on it. There is actually a free agent, and if you go to pricing, it doesn't cost anything for personal nonprofit education and testing use. But if you go and you look at what it's going to include, the only thing that you're going to get for free is a zero-day vulnerability attack. All these other patches are not included. So if you say, well, I want to pay for it, well, $24.95 is probably right around $25 to $30 US on a year basis. So for the first year, if you were doing this, and if they don't increase the price, it's the same as what Microsoft is offering, essentially, and probably more. But and in subsequent years, especially if Microsoft kicks it up to $60 for the second year, now you're going to get these other patches. So it looks like they're forecasting it'll be Windows 10 version V2 H22 is going to be the final configuration. At least they think that. Steve, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, I think it's called Zero Patch, not O Patch. O Patch would be for Oracle.
Let's see. I'm looking up here at the top at the address. I don't see a cap. You probably are right. Zero patch. And that's the reason is because it says 0 days.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you. Yep. But you can see for the price, there's an extensive amount of patches although we don't run the server software, but they're going to include server software. And apparently, if you're running Windows 7 still, and some people do, it's going to cover those. And I'm not quite sure how it ties in with Windows 10, but they're saying there's Windows 10 patches that they're going to be providing and perhaps updating that as well if you had Windows 10, which I don't know if their patches are better than Microsoft's or not. You'd have to figure that one out. But they also let you try it free. So that's one service. So choosing to stay on Windows 10 with extended support, whether it's Microsoft or a third party, is forecast to be only a temporary solution because eventually it'd be like Windows 7 is now. And I guess even Windows XP, I've got a version of that around here. I can still load it on a computer and make it work, but it's not really a safe environment to run in. So while you're getting this temporary support, you're relying on limited security updates while moving towards an inevitable transition to newer systems. And it's probably going to be a Windows 12 at some time or a Windows 11 something. So you really need a long-term strategy if you want to keep your hardware and if the hardware is still viable. So for most people, the answer might be upgrading to Windows 11. And for those whose PCs meet the system requirements that Microsoft publishes, then upgrading to Windows 11 is advisable. If you've got a computer that passes all the tests and you haven't upgraded to Windows 11, you definitely should consider it after October. Now, some may qualify for a free upgrade to Windows 11, and it depends on what version of Windows 10 license that you have now. Those with unsupported PCs face risk while trying to install Windows 11 with alternative methods, which I'll discuss. And the fees that I'm talking about, I think I've got it on the next slide here. I didn't do it. Okay. So what I'm talking about here is if you've got Windows 10 Home and you want to upgrade to Windows 11, you're going to get a Windows 11 Home for free. But if you really want to get Windows 11 Pro, you can get a license upgrade. And usually you get a dialog when you boot up into Windows 11. If you're in the home for the first time, they're going to say, if you want to, you can upgrade by going to the Microsoft Store and getting a license upgrade. So how do you know if your PC is compatible to get to Windows 11? Before upgrading, thoroughly check your PC's hardware compatibility with Windows 11. So this includes criteria like the CPU type, the system RAM, storage requirements, graphics capabilities. Microsoft does have a built-in health check under the Windows Update and settings and can provide an initial check and basically tell you if your computer qualifies to be upgraded to Windows 11 through the normal Microsoft. A third-party program, which I remember running some time ago and liking, it's called Why Not Win 11. It's a free and open source utility that can provide more information on one's computer and reasons why it might not be able to upgrade officially to Windows 11. I'll go back here and go to that. Let me see if I can. I've got a big black box here at the top of my screen, so I'm going to go ahead and hit a meeting control and hopefully hide that. Hang on just a moment. Control Alt Shift H. We'll see if that works. Well, doesn't want to do it. All right, I'll just work around it. Okay, so why not, according to Bleeping Computer, why not Win 11 is a better replacement for Windows 11 PC Health Check? And as you can see, if you run it under Windows 10 or earlier, it will tell you if your boot type, in this case, is not qualifying, but if your CPU architecture does. And if the CPU generation, this particular check is a maybe. And then The number of cores, yeah, qualifies. The frequency qualifies. The direct 10 support, which is graphics, qualifies. They don't like the disk partitioning for some reason. You got a good RAM. You do have, well, this one doesn't have secure boot enabled. And the TPM module meets the minimum requirements, whether it's software or hardware. I remember Bob G was telling us that he was able to get qualified with a software TPM modification and not actually put a chip or get a new chip on his motherboard. So they're showing how to learn more about it. And okay, should have brought this up. So it's nice and large this time. So here, this one, they're saying they are detecting a TPM, so it would go well. Disk partitioning, not the fact that you got multiple partitions, but you've got a basic partition instead of a GPT partition. So that's something a partition manager has to adjust, or the Windows 11 installation or upgrade program has to adjust for you. So this is a free program, and it's available from the link. If you just search on why not Win 11, it's from GitHub. Let's see if I can click on this and it takes me there. So they've got the changes. Looks like you can do some command line switches for it. System requirements. Well, I was wrong. It has to run under at least Windows 8. So it won't run under Windows 7. And they're giving you an example again. And here's what you would download. Or you can download the zip and then extract it from the zip. And if you got a 32-bit version, this, I know you're going to have 64-bit Windows, but if you have 32-bit, this utility will run under the 32-bit version of it. And by the way, when we send out the video, I will send out the presentation as well. So all of the notes and links and things will be in that. Let's get in here. And there's the link that I just went to. So free versus fee upgrades. So understanding the differences between free and paid upgrades is essential. Microsoft allows free upgrades for qualifying license, while other users may need to pay for the upgrade. And I'd said that on the previous slide, so I didn't get that in the right place. But again, you can pay Microsoft to upgrade to Windows 11 Pro at the time you do this, if you wish. Unsupported PCs. Yes, there are PCs that don't meet Microsoft requirements and can indeed be supported. You can use patches, which can be applied at the time of installation. You can use third-party tools, or you can make registry entries. And interestingly enough, in a Microsoft blog, answersmicrosoft.com, they actually provide instructions for patching the registry. Now, for just the average user, we really don't recommend mucking about in the registry, which can totally ruin your computer. Of course, you've made a full image backup, right? But if this is going to be a project for you and you actually want to see how Windows 11 looks on your computer, you've tested it, it's not qualified to get an update for Windows 11, and yeah, you want to go in the registry and do the patch, you can go to this blog and see what they have to say about it. Now I'm going to cover the next thing and then go to this site because it's got information on the next one as well. So there is a utility. Most of the people who run Linux are aware of this. It's called Rufus. And this is how many people who are running Linux actually create and install Linux on their computers, because it comes up with a bootable USB stick. And Rufus also will allow you to make a bootable USB drive that'll install Windows 11 with the original source coming from Microsoft, but it will patch it. And the information on doing that is at the Rufus website, but also information on the Microsoft blog in the conversation talks about the actual step-by-step procedures. First, to patch the computer if you wish to, and see if that works, or to use Rufus and create an installation disk that's going to put Windows 11 on your computer. So let's go look at that website. Actually, 2 websites. I have to move this down so I can see my tabs here. Okay. So this is the Microsoft site at answersmicrosoft.com. And I'm going to go up to the original sequence. And the question was asked, can I use this registry hack to upgrade Windows 11 with no TPM? And then they give a Major Geeks site with information that quotes this registry hack, how to bypass TPM and install Windows. And they say, open the registry editor, go to this particular key, change, put a new D word in, give it a name, and allow upgrades with the D word, and double click allowing it, set the value. Any changes that you make to the registry, then you would reboot the computer and then go through and try to do the update. And they're asking, does it work? Well, Microsoft says, I guess that's Joel, he says all requirements should be, as the article, should be met, but you need at least the TPM for the bypass trick to work. And someone else says no bypass method is for users that have TPM 1.2. So, but maybe not meeting some of the other requirements, the 2.0 requirements. So they're basically saying you can patch it. It may or may not work. And that's why I looked at the Rufus tool, which I'll look at next, and then I'll come back to the method. So let's go look at that Rufus tool. Oops. Get it down here. Where did you go? It popped it's moving things out. Okay. Here we go. Okay, this is what I wanted. So this is the Rufus site, and this is the screen that you might get if you booted up the Rufus program under Windows or Linux or Mac, actually. And it tells you what you're about to try to install, how to set it up, what BIOS you're choosing, what formatting you're doing. And this particular one is set up for Ubuntu. However, here's the version for Windows 11. And these are all choices that you can do within Rufus. So you can say, I want Windows 11, and then there's a drop down and you can pick up which version that you want. And this is the edition, and you can be running from home and upgrading to Pro without paying Microsoft for it. I'm not advocating it, but it's a possibility with Rufus. And then you have a customization for the user experience. So this gets rid of some of the requirements that Microsoft has for installing Windows 11, removing the requirement for 4 gigabytes of or plus of RAM, secure boot, and TPM 2.0. By checking that, the version of the USB drive is going to have the patches necessary for Windows 11 to install. Then have under Windows 11, it's my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm off on this, but the default installation is to have an online Microsoft account. And many people ask, if this is the only change you wanted, ask that you be installed with a local account and not require a Microsoft account. So Rufus will do that patch for you. And then privacy questions, disable data collection. This is just a brute force, disable all data collection that Microsoft might enter by default in the installation. And then once you've turned off the Microsoft account, this then lets you set up the local account using the same name as your user. And for some people that are in a country other than the United States and want to be in the United States with its version, you can actually set regional options as to where in the world you are when you're actually doing this. So there's a lot of capability to this utility, and it is free. Okay, now I got to get back to where I was. Come on. Sure what it's doing here. Oh, I see it. There we go. So after all of that, trying to go through and decide if you're going to stick with 10 or upgrade to 11 and do it the regular way or use patches or programs, maybe you've just decided that your computer is old, you've had it for a long time, and it's just time to break down and buy a new PC. So investing in a new PC that comes pre-installed with Windows 11 is going to ensure full compatibility and optimal performance. Manufacturers are creating hardware specifically designed to meet Windows 11's requirements, leading to a seamless user-on experience. This option is ideal for those wanting to leverage the latest features right from the onset without the need for upgrades or patches. New hardware brings several benefits, such as improved processing power, increased RAM. Lots of computers are coming out now, with a standard of 16 gigs minimum, and many are doing 32 or more. Enhanced graphic capabilities with standalone graphic cards or graphic chips, essential for smooth computing experiences. New PCs often incorporate the latest technology, resulting in faster boot times, better multitasking, and more efficient energy consumption. Additionally, they may come with extended warranties and support from manufacturers. With new computers designated for Windows 11, you can take full advantage of the operating system's capabilities. Features like direct storage for faster load time, automatic high-definition resolution for better visuals are supported on newer hardware, and higher-end PCs also can feature internal AI chips, and some are actually branded Copilot PCs. And then you're going to be getting regular updates from Microsoft to ensure the performance remains optimized, providing users with the best possible experience in productivity and entertainment. So what if you really want to downsize a little bit, simplify your life, minimize updates, and just get a device that is a computer, replaces your existing PC or notebook, and runs the Chrome operating system? And Huey and Ron and Tech for Senior and APCUG have had many presentations on Chromebooks, and I've had a couple myself. I know Huey's had several, and they are a definite alternative to a full PC. So they're known for their simplicity and speed. They're designed primarily about the web, but they do have a lot of offline capabilities that you can do without actually being connected to the web. The operating system itself is actually almost an instantaneous boot and efficient performance. You get automatic updates, which enhance security and usability without requiring significant system resources, making it ideal for everyday tasks. The security on these is actually the operating system itself is contained in a writable, programmable read-only memory called EEPROM, and there's two of them. So when the system updates, it's been operating on the backup, it's been operating on the primary EEPROM while the update gets into the backup EEPROM when it happens. And then when you just say update or you restart the computer, it just switches and you're immediately updated. You don't have to go through a long update installation process. Chromebooks seamlessly integrate with Google services such as Drive, Docs, and Gmail, enabling users to work entirely in the cloud. This integration provides easy access to files and applications from various devices. Users benefit from collaboration features where multiple users can edit documents in real time, making it great for both personal education use. And you don't have to give up your Microsoft Office applications if you're not a power user, because all of Office 365 is actually available on the web as an app that you can run on a Chromebook. Chromebooks are ideal for users focused on internet browsing, online productivity, and cloud computing. Students, educators, I'll put in seniors, professionals engaged in remote work. Due to their lightweight architecture, many of them are extremely lightweight, long battery life, perfect for casual users looking for an affordable yet functional device for tasks like email, video streaming, light productivity. Overall, Chromebooks are usually priced much lower than equivalent Windows-based notebooks. And if I didn't mess up my browser, I think I can go back to it. Let's see if we got it. Yep. So here's a search that I did on Amazon earlier today. And just the very first one came in under $200, a discount from $200 anyway. Here's an Asus Chromebook, 14 inches. It's got a Celeron processor, which is really all you really need in a Chromebook because you don't have to have ultra power. 64 gigabytes storage, and most of your storage is probably going to be on Google Drive, but you've got 64 gigabytes if you want to save things locally. 4 gigs of RAM, which is really, again, for basic unit, that's all you need. But there are Chromebooks that have higher for almost double the price. Here's one with 8 gigabytes and 128 gigs local storage. All of them come with Wi-Fi. Some will actually have an Ethernet connector if you want to connect it, or a dongle so that you can plug in for actual local hookup. But in general, just taking a look at what's there, most of them are well below what you would expect to pay for an equivalent capability PC notebook running Windows 11. My price point when I go shopping for a Windows 10 or 11 notebook is always start looking in the $500 range and see if I can find something on sale that's been reduced from $750 down to $500 or something like this. So Chromebooks put you in an entirely different arena in terms of cost, yet allowing you to be as productive or almost as productive as if you were with a Windows PC. My opinion. Okay, so what did I do? I went to Linux. Various distributions of Linux cater to different user needs, with accessibility, ease of use being paramount. Popular options include Linux Mint, known for its familiar interface, and Ubuntu, which is designed for newcomers. Both offer extensive community support, making it easy for new users to transition from Windows to Linux while enjoying a wide range of applications. What I'm going to do is just quickly change my screen sharing. And I'm going to switch over and share my desktop that has Linux on it. And let's see if I can, well, I think you probably get a black bar at the top with these Linux, with these Zoom controls. But what you're looking at is, I have got 2 monitors. So this is my left-hand monitor. It's a 24-inch monitor. And this is, I'm running the B-Link mini PC that I bought last October. I backed up an image of how it came from the factory with Windows 11, wiped it out, did all the setup necessary, and I put Linux Mint on it. It looks and functions almost exactly like Windows does. I've got my Brave browser. I've got Edge if I want to run it. I've got Firefox if I want it. I've got an actual YouTube application. I'm going to get into it later on in my series on how I actually got it to run Quicken, which is a Windows-only program, and I've successfully managed to get Quicken to run under Linux now It's got file folders. It's got links. Everything is pretty much set up. It's got a tray, which we call panel, which has got quick action functions that you can just start things. It's got a status bar down at the bottom. So the transition from Windows to Linux in terms of a user interface, double click on something and it runs, right click on it and get options. File managers, very similar to the file manager in Windows. Screenshots, which I like to bring up screenshots very much like Snippet is with under Windows. All kind, and I'm running Zoom right now with it, and running this presentation that I'm running with it. And we'll go back to that. Any questions at this point before I get into this a little more? Okay.
I got a question.
Sure, go ahead.
With the Linux Mint OS, can you log in and sync with OneDrive?
Yes, I have not. Drew, you're using a program called rsync, is that correct?
Not rsync. It's called rclone.
Rclone, that's it.
Yes, and you can, with that software, it's free open source software, and you can mount your OneDrive folder. I do that on my computer with Linux, and you can access all your files.
And you also use your Google Drive on that too, don't you?
Yes, I do. I use
pCloud?
pCloud. I use about a half a dozen different cloud providers.
Okay. So what I just showed you is called Linux, and Linux Mint, and it actually is distributed as its standalone distribution. I am using a more basic version of Linux Mint, which is called Linux Mint Debian Edition, because I investigated what its features were, and I decided I wanted to go that route. But it's something that I did as a hobbyist more than what somebody might do that was just saying, I just want to convert. So when I did this investigation on Copilot, this is what they specifically said. This was most likely the most recommended would be Linux Mint, but there's others, and there's Fedora is got cutting edge software, and Debian, which I'm based on, emphasizes stability and reliability, which was more my interest. And when you go to a Windows version, it's pretty much, it's either home or pro. And yes, you can adjust the desktop the way you want and set backgrounds and some colors and all the rest of that, but it operates pretty much the same way. If you decide that you want something that's more than basic or is easier for a user, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of distributions of Linux. So the process of deciding how to do that will be in one of my future presentations, an extension of this one. But again, the basic recommendation is pick one that's extremely popular, which Linux Mint is, and download, install it, and try it out. Steve Parker.
Yeah, have you been able to get Linux Mint to run Steam?
Yes.
And does it do it effectively, or?
Does it do it is the first part of your question. Yes. Does it do it effectively? Well, yes, but I
tried the Bazite version of Linux, and I got the darn thing to install, but I couldn't get it to run.
Gaming has been one of the sore points that many users, especially technical users, have complained about with Linux itself. The company Steam has a whole bunch of online games, as well as those that can run entirely on your computer. And they're in development of their own operating system, which is based on Linux. They're calling it Steam OS, and it's still not out, not even in beta, but their team is still working on it. But Steam is available for installation under Linux, Mac, and Windows. And when it's installed on Linux, there is an add-on called Proton, not the Proton Mail, which loads with it. And it also installs a number of Windows DLLs. So it's a combination of Linux calling DLL routines. And yes, it does work. Some of the more simple games work. Some of the more complex games, not as well. But there's whole gamer forums out there, Discords especially, that are devoted to running gaming under Linux. So it's there, but I will be honest with you, my old desktop or my old tower unit, which I was going to dispose of, I'm still keeping running Windows 10 and running my Steam game on, just because it's got a very good graphics card on it and it runs pretty well. I know Drew was looking at buying a mini computer that has an adapter that runs an external graphics card. Drew, did you get any further in your investigations of that?
I postponed the purchase for a few months while I work on some other projects. So it's been on the back burner for now. I'm not a really big gamer or a gamer at all, so it would be unlikely that I would try and run Steam or any other graphics game program on there, just because I don't do it now.
Okay.
So I'm not a good gaming resource.
Well, I might give you a project just to try once you get it, just to see if it works, to see if that's something I want to do and get rid of my old tower. But
Right.
at the moment, it fills up a lot of discretionary time. Okay, let's see. All right. So advantages of Linux over Windows. A lot of these will probably be subjective, and they claim enhanced security. Well, enhanced security, how? Home users are probably not the largest group of computer users running Linux. Linux runs on a lot of corporate systems, runs on servers, runs on workstations, and there's more options for a hacker to try to get into a corporate Linux system than just trying to pick on a user, get them to click on a link, and then install some malware. So Linux itself, pretty much like Chrome, which, by the way, the Chrome OS actually is a branch or a fork of Linux. So somebody buying a Chromebook is actually running Linux. But at any rate, the security of the home users type PC, be it a desktop or be it a notebook, is much more enhanced, in my opinion, than the default security for Windows. And that's up for debate. Customization, as I stated, you can customize based on the distribution itself. You can also customize based on how the desktop is set up. And there are actually downloads for separate desktop systems for a Linux distribution. So, for example, Linux Mint can come with what's known as the Cinnamon desktop, which is what you just saw. It also comes with Mate desktop, which is a little bit different, with the standard icons and mouse pointers and all the rest of that being different. So people can experiment and see what they like. They're stating that many distributions utilize fewer system resources. So here's where that old computer that's running slow that you're thinking about getting rid of, so that you can buy the new computer, which has Windows 11, restore your speed or be faster, might run just fine under Linux. And the easiest way to find out is you just make an installation disk called a live distribution, or an installation USB flash drive, boot it up on that old computer that has Windows. Don't install it and play with it. It's a full version of Linux. It's running off, it's booting and running off of that USB drive. I recommend that you get a USB 3 minimum just to have the faster interface. But it's a chance to look at it, try it out, and see, yeah, maybe it would be worth trying this to save this. And some people will go ahead and get a new PC anyway, and then keep the old laptop and say, okay, now I can use it and do all the things I was doing before. And as in my case, I chose to install Linux instead of Windows right from the start with the B-Link mini computer, because I have used Linux 15, 20 years and retained a very old notebook, which runs just fine with it, and has minimal CPU, minimal memory. And it just lets me do email and watch YouTube videos and some other things. And then I have a relatively new notebook that I just started out with Linux as well. So as Windows 10 support ends, users do have various options. Keeping Windows 10 with potential workarounds for security, upgrading Windows 11 if possible, or using patches or utilities, purchasing new hardware, considering Chromebooks for simple tasks, or tasks that might not be that simple, but that don't have, you know, major demands on the resources of the computer, or switching to Linux for a flexible open source solution and running it on a newer, higher powered computer. But Linux is free in the vast majority of cases. And each option comes with its own benefits and drawbacks. So it's up to the user to decide, is this something that they want to do? Now, I did not add in here, use a tablet or use a phone. And some people are quite happy with just computing on a tablet or using their phone for the internet and email. I know several of my relatives and friends that don't even have a computer at all, and they're quite happy doing what they're doing. So you kind of have to decide. I focused in on a PC and trying to keep it going. Now, when I started out to do this series, I was going to kind of do it in two parts. The first part is what I just did today, and I can see that it's gone about 45 minutes. So that's pretty much all I want to try to cover today. But the actual process of how do you go about researching what's required to go to an alternative solution like Linux, choosing the distribution, and we'll take a look at a bunch of distributions that are available, and then actually setting the computer's BIOS, because the vast majority, if not all, computers that are sold today are set up to run Windows. And many Linux distributions will adjust for that to try to install and accommodate a newer computer's BIOS. But I wanted my BIOS set up that would definitely support Linux and not have the restrictions of having to have extra security on boot and so on. Downloading Linux using a flash drive with Rufus to set it up, installing it and checking out Mint that I talked about. Once it's installed, take a look at the applications that come by default with Linux, which pretty much like a Chromebook are going to have you up and running and productive before you even downloaded the first piece of software. But after that's done, there might be programs that you were running under Windows that now you want to know, are there Linux programs that will do the same thing, and how to do that. And then which Linux programs will actually run, which Windows programs will actually run under Linux. As I said, I've got Quicken, which is a Windows-only program. Which is a Windows-only program. There is no Linux version. And I've got it running. and I had to pay a little bit for a program called Crossover, which some Mac users may be familiar with. And then for those that really say, well, you know, I really want the ability, if I need to run Windows without having to set up what's called a dual boot computer. And this has been done several times with the APCUG workshops and safaris in setting up a Windows virtual machine. And I've done that as well. So that's a good subject on its own, just to show you the capabilities. And you can run Windows 7, you can run Windows XP, you can run Windows 10 and or Windows 11 in a virtual machine very easily. I think I mentioned when Huey was giving the presentation that AI can assist in putting presentations together. So this is the credits go to a company called Slides Go, and they're using icons and infographics and images and so on. But if this is something that you're interested in, Slides, just search on Slides Go, and they can actually help you put PowerPoints together with a lot of options. I don't particularly like this one overall, but it was quick and it was easy. And now I'll stop sharing and we'll open up for any questions.
Question.
Yes.
Thinking of converting a lower end older Dell computer that I use for college course. This might be the perfect thing for it because it won't run Windows 11. I don't use Zoom on it a lot, but how does Zoom work in comparison to the Windows on the Linux? No issues?
I have used, sitting to my left is a side desk at about a 45-degree angle.
Mhm.
I have a 32-inch monitor up here with an HDMI connector that I plug into lots of different things.
Mhm.
Keyboard and mouse that are on a switch. So on the desktop itself is a Dell notebook. I'm going to say purchased early 2000-ish. And it came with Windows 7. And I just have never updated it to anything other than Linux. I've tried. In fact, we ran a Linux special interest group for a while, and until we got a dedicated computer for it, I used that, and it was in Zoom conferences all the time. I'll probably conference it into the installation portion and do the installations on it as a participation in the conference itself. So
And
Zoom will run.
I assume also that Zoom makes a distribution for Linux itself. You don't have to compile it and all that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a download on the Zoom website.
Very good information. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we thank you all for coming. Probably Drew and I and several others in the computer side will talk about what we do in our next presentation, whether we continue this, throw something in the middle to break up the theme, then pick it up again the month after. I think going through the process of what you would have to do to truly convert 100% to Linux in terms of having as much functionality as you have now under your Windows computer calls for some pre-planning. So what I did and what you might want to do to prepare for something like that might be worth doing as next month's presentation.
Yeah. Well, you can buy a $200 Windows computer, or you can pay me $1,000 and I'll help you convert to Linux.
Well, we used to do it in our own SIG. We had it for a year and a half. In fact, if you go to that playlist that's on our CFCS.org website, the link to the CFCS playlist, go back and look at the Linux SIG videos. And much of what I plan on doing will be focused on, what I did with the latest computer But we examined all kinds of Linux distros. We looked at installing programs. We looked at installing drivers that didn't come with it. Lots of Q&A and lots of support for that. Stephanie? Unmute. There you go.
Yeah. Can you use current versions of Linux on a Win 7 or Win 8 computer?
Yes, because it's the hardware. You're not actually upgrading as you do, like if you've got Windows 8 now and you say, well, I want to put Windows 10 on it, you're doing an upgrade. So when you're installing Linux, you're essentially wiping the computer clean after you backed everything up, and then you're installing Linux. So yes, the hardware that you've got that will run Windows 8 will run most versions of Linux. And there are some special distributions that are designed for older 32-bit computers that don't have the resources that the newer computers do.
Now, my other question is, can you run the programs, Chromebooks, without having without being connected with well, you're connected, but I mean, can you do work without being your internet
You
actually
want to
working?
answer that one? How to run Chromebooks without being connected to the internet?
Yeah, there are ways, but for the most part, you really need to be online.
So I
But
can't just write something that I want to write on my computer if I bought one. That there's a draft
yeah,
or something without going up to and
no, you do not have to do that. You're correct. You can open up your Google Docs and write something, and then once you connect, it will upload it to the cloud.
And does it have to be Google? Or can it be some other version of software?
If it's a Chromebook, it's not going to run Windows software. So Google Docs is what most people use.
Okay.
The
And
one, the one way in on a Chromebook where you could run Word is use the online version of Word.
okay. Thank you.
And then the other, which is more difficult way, which I wouldn't recommend for a novice, is to install Chromebooks can run Linux and alongside the Chrome OS, and then you can run LibreOffice inside Chrome, inside the Linux partition. But I wouldn't recommend that to somebody that doesn't already have a basic fundamental familiarity with Linux.
Agreed. Walter.
Yeah, I had a couple older Dell computers in here. One of them belonged to a neighbor and she passed away and I inherited it. And my wife was running one. And neither one of those would take Windows 11 without doing anything. On one of them, I went ahead and did the Rufus install with Windows 11 and it worked just fine. I even went out and found a special online where I could upgrade it to Pro for like 15 or 20 bucks. And they accepted that license key. The other one I was going to sit here and play with and put Linux on it and actually set it up to dual boot Windows 11 and Linux Mint Cinnamon. And I got that to work without any problems or whatever. But I'm sitting here thinking I really don't have a need for Linux. I don't want to play with it. For my work, I need Windows applications and but everything worked just fine. Now, one other thing I ran into is there's a version of Linux called, I think, Ubuntu or something like that.
Yeah.
And I actually installed that and then realized that one, they wanted me to pay them money on a regular basis, and two, apparently some of the stuff they're doing is kind of shady. So I don't know that that was really recommended.
Yeah,
I looked at Ubuntu and I figured there is a copyright suit just waiting to be
right.
filed
I figured they'd get sued sooner or later.
I mean,
Yeah.
when it boots up, you're looking at the Windows purple flower and everything on the screen looks like it's Windows.
But if I'd wanted to mess with Linux, I was happy with the dual boot. Everything worked just fine. It wasn't that complicated setting up.
And that particular version of Linux is not the number one greatest solution to get Windows apps to run on Linux.
Hmm.
Um, um, there are only a limited set of Windows apps that you can run on Linux, really. The program that Mike mentioned, Crossover, is a company that makes a product for that purpose. You know, they test, and you can go to their website and look at the apps that they recommend that do work and the ones that don't work. Um, you'll find, like the latest version of Office 365 from Windows is not going to work on Linux, no matter what you do, no matter how much money you pay. It's just not going to work right. But you can get older versions of software to run. You can get, as Mike uses, Quicken. There are some things that you can do, but you can't just assume that you can run all your Windows apps.
One of the things that for me was a big positive, especially with crossover, is Microsoft's just come out. I think I just saw another alert from them saying that Microsoft Publisher is being not, what's the term, degraded, or begins with a D, dis something or other. In other words, they're not going to support it anymore. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to worry. I've got an old version. They said, no, it's not going to be supported anymore. And if you've got Office 365 with Publisher in it, depreciate it. If you got Office 365 with Publisher in it, you will not be able to open your old Publisher files. And I probably have at least 100 Microsoft Publisher files that I would want to open and edit if I need to use as templates. So I went hunting. I went back to the list of programs that Crossover supports under Linux, and they support Office. I don't remember if it's 2000, 2013, one of the earlier versions that does have an older 32-bit version of Publisher on it. I installed that under Linux. It's working. I opened up a current Microsoft Publisher file in compatibility mode, and I opened it. A few things I had to change. So with Microsoft no longer supporting Publisher, I can still use Microsoft Publisher under Linux. So I've gained a capability that Microsoft isn't going to support anymore. Stephanie.
And
Unmute.
unmute. Yep, unmute yourself.
Okay. Stephanie, if you're
Oh.
having problems, leave a question in chat. I'll get them and see if I can get them back out to you. Okay, folks, I'm going to stop the recording.